Welcome back to the Athlete Hackers Podcast. I'm Chris Schrade.
And I'm Mark Spellman. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get with our guest, Jeremy Tormala, we're going to discuss our last two podcasts and our big takeaways. One, the assistant strength and conditioning and applied scientist at NC State, Sam Moore. The importance of talking with your female athletes and using and optimizing the menstrual cycle for their strength gains and performance gains, and making sure that you're having those open and honest discussions that a lot of coaches are afraid to have.
It's a fascinating podcast. You know, one of the most interesting things to me was the part in the cycle where they actually go catabolic and you can lose gains, but you can overcome that with certain nutritional habits and, you know, paying attention to what training you're providing at that point.
Yeah, any coach or parent that has a female athlete in their house or on their team or that they're working with, I definitely recommend it. And obviously the contact information, if you want to talk more about it, to reach out to Sam Moore, it's definitely there in the podcast. The other one, the opportunity to talk with one of my mentors, Mark Asanovich, and the importance of training the neck and shoulder girdle and how it decreases the likelihood or possibility of concussions, not only for combative sports, but for all sports.
Yeah.
And just the opportunity to catch up with somebody who's been so instrumental in my life. So.
Yeah, he's got not only, I mean, the neck portion is incredibly important, like you said, for every sport. And Mark, that's something you've been harping on ever since I knew you. You've been talking about training the neck to prevent concussions. But he's got some pretty good principles to go by that he talks about in that podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, he hammered home the 4 Ps when I was with him in Tampa, and then he added the 5th P for politically correct, which I know our guest can definitely talk about in the setting that he's in now. And a lot of coaches don't understand that the words that they use and the actions that they have with their athletes carry such a positive or negative connotation depending on what verbiage they're using with their athletes.
Mark, I'm as always going to let you bring our host in because you're such a genuine and incredible host and do a great job at that. But I wanted to point out that Jeremy is our first guest that reached out to us on the email. I want to know if he could come on, and poof, there he is. He's on. So if you're interested in coming on, if you coach kids in sports at any level, if you're a strength coach, if you're an athlete, if you're a parent, if you want to come on, talk about certain topics, or just get on and ask us questions, we'd love to have you. Look us up or send us an email at info@athletehackers.com. Yes.
As Chris said, I guess I'm the hype man for the show.
You're way more than that, but you just you're very hospitable.
Well, you know, I'm
you know how to make people feel comfortable.
Well, okay. And uncomfortable for my former athlete. It's my distinct honor and privilege to have our next guest on the show, Coach Jeremy Tormala. Before we get into it, I have to thank you for your service. He is retired military.
Yeah, I did 5 years, so I did my time of service and then got out of there. So,
so Jeremy,
it's more than most. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it,
guys. I truly, anybody that's served our country and has helped protect us, I definitely thank you for your time and service. And, I speak for the show that we appreciate your service to our country. But Jeremy, give us a rundown where you are, what you've done, where you've been, all that good stuff, and then we'll get into hacking it up.
All righty. Well, currently I'm the strength and conditioning coach for the Muskegon Lumberjacks. It's a United States Hockey League team. It's a top-tier junior hockey in the United States of America. I'm also the head strength and conditioning coach for 2 high schools at the same time. prior to this, I was the assistant strength and conditioning coach at Northern Michigan University. I worked with women's basketball, women's lacrosse, both men and women swim and diving teams, and I picked up men's soccer as well. Prior to that, I was at Muskegon as well and Fruitport High School, so I kind of came back to what I was doing prior. Before that, I did a couple sports academies. That's kind of where I really developed the passion of working strictly with athletes, because we had some gen pops there as well. But athletes have specific goals they're trying to achieve, so to me, that's much more enjoyable than and there's nothing wrong with the general population, but when you just want to be healthy, like, I mean, you can do that so many different ways. When someone needs to be explosive, or I need to get stronger, that's my passion. You know, that was something that really was something that drew me into it. So that's pretty much what my experience has been, minus the military too. That's where I developed my passion for all this stuff. So
what so right now, I think one of the things that hit me, how are you a strength coach for two different schools?
Oh boy, it's they kind of
and do they play each other?
No, it would be hard to if they did, because that would be quite the predicament on who to root for. The company I work, so I'm actually contracted through it's Mercy Health Partners, and they opened up a position, and that was one way to get it to be the full time and benefits and stuff, was to have these different positions. Because if I was just to be with the Lumberjacks hockey team, that would be a part-time position. So they have the position to go, hey, you can go do 3 hours of weightlifting at this high school, and then be responsible for the strength and conditioning for the other high school as well, with the after school hours and their football team. That would make it full time. So it's like, obviously wouldn't turn that down. So
currently, if I'm not mistaken, you have 3 jobs.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So for the younger strength coaches out there, understand right now, 3 jobs and full time.
Yeah.
You know, you're dealing with a high level junior hockey, and we'll get more into that. 2 high schools.
Yeah.
How do you break up that time? I mean,
oh boy, some days can be, and in there sometimes I have there's a youth hockey, the Muskegon Junior Jacks, so it's the 14 and under teams. So last year, my schedule sometimes would be 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, because I'd go to do the high school, do a football lift before school starts. Then I'd go to the other school, do 3 hours of weightlifting, then go do Muskegon Lumberjacks for a few hours, and go to the other high school for after school stuff, and then go do the youth hockey team. So it'd be all over the place. But I mean, when it's sad to say, but after you go, the emotions of working with the different athletes and their personalities and stuff, when you get to 14 under kids and they really test your patience, you're kind of hard to keep from, I guess, going punish everybody with sprints and all that stuff, because your patience has been so run thin by the end of the day. So, but at the same time, you love what you do, and you got to understand that they're kids. That's the biggest thing, is, you got to make it fun for them. Well, at the same time as making them a better athlete. So that's kind of the key to finding how that works.
What age group are you working with the Lumberjacks?
The Lumberjacks, our age range is 16 to 20 years of age. So you have quite the age bracket of maturity levels and experiences there. So that can be kind of a little bit of a art to it, to be able to work with that team chemistry.
Okay, what when you run me basically through their season, like when preseason starts, what a season looks like for them, and postseason, if you can.
Yeah. So
you're really the first coach that we're talking with that works with youth hockey.
Yeah, and this is actually because when I was at Northern Michigan, we had a D1 hockey program, and to me, this is harder, because there's a lot more that goes on at this league than there is at the college level. So our preseason begins early September. We usually go a couple of weeks, and we have to make our final 23-man roster. And then we go into our season, and playoffs and stuff don't begin until April. And then the last series is usually played in May. So it's a very long season. During the season, we also have trades. Then you have players that come from different countries like Finland, Russia, and some of them can't speak English. So there's that barrier as well. It's pretty chaotic. It's a grind. They got 60 regular season games, and that's way more than the college level. And it's a some of these kids are still going to school at high school too, doing it online. It's a lot to ask of them to play at this level.
And Mark, did you have a hockey team at Fairfield?
When we first started, when I first started, we had hockey, and then 2 years into my tenure there, they got rid of football, and the hockey team was training that night. And I looked at them, I was like, you think they're only getting rid of one sport? And I didn't know anything. And I swear to this day, I knew nothing about that they were getting rid of hockey. And then like 2 days later, they got rid of hockey.
Oh.
And the guys, it gets better. The guys still had like a third of the season left.
Wow.
Oof.
Football was done. So they cut football. Football was done. They weren't training. They weren't doing stuff. I still worked out the guys that wanted to train.
Yeah.
Like hockey, like they sat them down 2 days after football, and they're like, yeah, this is your last season here. And they still had a third of like I said, they still had a third of the season to play. And I wound up being, because their last hockey game was during the basketball tournament for the MAC, I wound up being the senior administrator for their last hockey game.
Wow.
And I told all the players, I was like, listen, if any one of your parents comes up and yells at me about this decision, we're going to have problems. You know I don't want you guys I don't want you guys going anywhere. I love training the hockey guys because most of the guys that I had came from the junior hockey world. So I had 21-year-old freshmen. It was great.
Yeah.
So a question for both of you. How does the strength and conditioning training for hockey athletes differ from other athletes?
Jeremy, I'll let you take this one.
Oh boy. I guess I wouldn't say there's really that many differences compared to other sports. I mean, most sports you pretty much do the same thing. There's some slight differences, primarily in their the development of their energy systems. That might be the major difference. But my philosophy for training pretty much any of my teams we always do some sort of jump. We do some sort of a squat, a hinge, a push, and a pull for every one of our workouts. Pretty straightforward.
At the risk of sounding ignorant, I mean, because I know nothing about hockey, but is there a big endurance factor? Or, I mean, you're skating on ice. Is it more just muscular, or is there a big endurance factor as well?
There's a little bit. I mean, there's no friction on the ice, but at the same time, it's different from running and all that stuff, because you can do all the 300 yards and all that stuff you want on the dry land, but when you put somebody on skates, it works you completely different. I mean, because it's more in the frontal and the transverse planes and the sagittal plane compared to regular sprinting, so it's quite a bit different. That being said, it's not like full-blown endurance, because the average shift is like 45 seconds, and it's not like they're full speed skating that entire time. You might have a couple 4 to 6 step bursts here and there, and then they're lightly skating or coasting throughout that time. So it's a bit of a mix of both.
They can also get a lot faster than anybody can running on that ice. I mean, and you're talking, I mean, you see it in the NHL now. These guys are huge. I mean, they're huge. And then you put them on skates, and they're going upwards of 20 miles per hour plus on the ice, and they're hitting each other. And, their equipment's gotten better, but it's still not much protection.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So there's more muscular fatigue than say cardio fatigue. Is that accurate?
Yeah. It's high intense bursts of activity. So yeah, it's more of that than the full blown endurance portions.
And Mark, what you're saying, if they're going 20 miles an hour in these quick bursts, I guess the muscles that are used to stop their momentum are probably incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, like anything, I mean, it doesn't matter how good the gas is if you don't have good brakes. I mean, if your car goes 1,000, if your car can go 100 miles per hour, but you can't stop it, good luck.
Yep.
Because that stop's really gonna hurt. For me, I mean, for me with the hockey guys, I mean, we would always train. Once again, we would train their neck and shoulder girdle first. Then we would do some sort of hip dominant lower body, some sort of knee dominant lower body. We would probably do a bilateral lower body as well, and a single and an iso lower body, horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull. And then we would have some sort of finisher, whether it was a carry or, just something that was miserable for them. Something they didn't really like to do, but they would also compete with each other.
Yep. Competition's huge, so.
Competition's huge. I mean, because if you can beat your teammate, and then when you come together, beating your opponent's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. So it's the biggest mindset to maintain during the training session is you're going to be competing, so you got to keep that level. I mean, if you just go through the motions, you don't do it on the ice, it's going to come back and bite you. So.
What kind of injuries are we looking at for hockey? What are the big ones?
Oh boy, a lot of, I mean, Mark
Besides
touched on
the
it a little bit
teeth.
too with the shoulder girdle. So a lot of shoulder stuff, hips as well. These are primary injury points, and sometimes the ankle too, because we got mobility issues with having to wear a boot on there. But hips and shoulders primarily the big ones I see at that level.
And Mark talks a lot about the hip, knee, ankle communication and coordination. I imagine that's huge for skating.
Yes.
Well, I mean, like Jeremy said, I mean, the boot that they're in for hockey is ridiculous as far as ankle mobility. I mean, they're basically wearing a cast on their foot. So like making sure that their ankle mobility and their hip mobility is where it is. You get a lot of hip and groin issues with the repetitive motion of skating because it is not a normal running motion. I mean, they're always pushing out. So, I mean, to make sure that their make sure that their abductors and adductors are balanced in their hip joint is important. But I mean, Jeremy can speak to this. Most successful hockey players, I mean, the backside on them is phenomenal. I mean,
yes. Yeah.
They can move big weight as far as squats, deadlifts.
Yeah.
Single leg squats, rear foot elevated split squats. I mean, they can, and most hockey kids, when they probably get to you, they've already had a couple years of training under their belt.
Yes, and I guess that would be the lead kind of in the next talking point of like if there's parents or kids wondering how to make it out, because I mean it is, people look at junior hockey, go, oh, it's just junior hockey, but I mean we have a lot of players at this league that go right up and play into the NHL, or a lot of D1 college scholarships as well. You have to get in the weight room. Like so many parents, all the speed, agility drills and all that stuff, you can do them all, but if your kid's not strong, you don't have any foundation to get explosiveness and speed out of it. Like they have to be in the weight room. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Patrick Kane. He's a player for the Chicago Blackhawks, and
Yep.
There was an article that came out, I don't remember if it was Sports Illustrated or whatever, I don't know how long ago it was, talked about how he doesn't do any weight training this summer and all that stuff anymore. And then you had parents that were going, well, he doesn't train, so why does my kid? It's just like, well, he's an NHL player who's multiple Stanley Cup championships. So like your kid is 14, like that's a big difference. So being able to communicate that, like you're not even on the same playing field. You need to have a strong foundation before you can consider you're someone, to train somebody like Patrick Kane. That's a whole different beast right there.
I love it. Why doesn't my 14-year-old son? Why can't my 14-year-old son do what Patrick Kane
it
does? I mean, first of all, Patrick Kane's a grown ass man.
Yeah.
He's 28, probably low 30s now, and your son or daughter is 14.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, at 14, Patrick Kane was in a weight room.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I guarantee it. I mean,
and if not, he had the genetic potential to be able to perform the stuff that maybe your kid can't and needs weight training to be able to catch up.
Yes.
Yeah, just because a professional athlete does or doesn't do something doesn't mean your adolescent child should or should not do it. I mean, I'm always a big believer that, you got to work on movement patterns first. And then if the movement patterns are good, then we can load them. If the movement patterns aren't good, we got to get them right before we load them up, or we're just going to add additional stress to the structure. And at some point, the structure is going to break.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true.
What are we looking at in average sizes for hockey players? And does it vary by position, or is it kind of stable?
Yeah, it varies. I mean, God, we got some of our forwards on our team be like, 5'9", 5'10". You got some that are 6 feet plus. Our goalies, typically now goalies are above 6 feet tall. Before they were kind of smaller. Now they're a taller, lankier type of guys. Defensemen are a combination of both. You got taller, but also more size to them, more of the physical kind players. So it's a pretty mixed bag at that, with hockey.
And how about for weight? What are we looking at?
Oh boy, usually like 185 pounds for our forwards, and then up to 220, 225-ish for our defensemen and stuff like that. Goalies are about 190, 200.
But relatively speaking, compared to other sports, it's kind of a small window. Is that accurate, Mark?
I when you asked about size, I mean the two guys I was thinking about was Martin St. Louis and Zendo Chara. I mean, Chara when he's on skates, he's over 7 feet tall.
Oh wow!
And then and Jeremy, you can correct me on Martin St. Louis, but I mean he's like 5'6".
Yeah, he's a small guy.
But once again, Chara's a defenseman, and St. Louis he's a forward.
Yep.
But once again, I mean, if you're St. Louis and you're going into the corner and Chara's coming at you, I mean, you better get the hell out of there because he's going to kill you.
Yeah, and to me, what's amazing about Chara is he's 6'9" and he's made it so long. He's still playing. I mean, it's crazy to make a career that long, especially when you're that big. Typically, athletes that tall, you have a lot of the hip and knee issues and stuff like that. So it's pretty phenomenal to be playing at that level still. I think he's over 40 now too. So,
wow.
And still one of the hardest shots in the NHL.
Yes. Yep.
It would be interesting to see what he does compared to like what the first year guys with Boston do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would assume they're not doing the same thing.
Oh yeah. I doubt that.
So what got you into strength and conditioning? Did it have something to do with your military service, or was it something were you always into sports? What led you down this path?
I played high school basketball when I was a kid. It's the only thing I could really afford to play. I've always been a hockey fan. But really it was the military. It was my second tour in Baghdad where they actually had a weight room in one of the bombed out palaces. So I started going out there and realized how much I felt better. Everything felt easier to do. It led me to, I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I quit smoking, all that stuff. So it just kind of snowballed into it. But now, when I look back at our physical training we did, and we just do I know people are still doing it right now, but it's mindless training. A lot of it's stupid. It makes me scratch my head now and, wonder why we had so many injuries, like half a platoon on crutches, or, there's that mentality of just oh, you're just milking it. You're just being a baby and stuff like that. It's no, when you're running 6 to 8 miles 3 times a week and you're doing nothing but push-ups and sit-ups, and you got people with knee issues and hip issues, it's well, yeah, look at our training. It makes no sense. Nowhere during, in a combat zone did I have to run 2 miles or even more than that. It was always short little bursts of sprints and stuff like that. So that was kind of my deciding factor of I want to go. I love doing this stuff. I want to work with athlete populations, make sure they get quality training and they're not going through the same crap that I just went through. Because unfortunately, when I was a sergeant, I did the same type of training. There's a strength coach, Anthony Donskoff, his name is talking about experience. Sometimes experience can be overrated because I say, well, my leaders did that, so now I'm doing this. Did you have 15 years of experience, or did you have one experience 15 times? So, it can be looked at differently. That's pretty much what led me into this career field.
Yeah, I think right now the military has really stepped back and looked at what they're doing as far as training. I know they're definitely looking at the special ops portion because of all the financial investment it takes to become a special operator, and all the training that they need to undergo.
$1 million to make a Navy SEAL?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, put that across the board. I would say for all the special operators out there, first and foremost, thank you for your service. But also, the military's been a lot better in probably the last 5 years.
Yeah.
As far as what they're requiring their, because they've really changed their PT. They've changed their testing to better accommodate the situations that the military officers and enlisted are going to see, and it's one time power. I forget the gentleman's name, but I'll get it. He's been huge with it, and it's good to see that the military's stepping back and realizing that the way they did things in the 70s, 80s, and 90s isn't what's going to help the military and the special operators now perform at the highest level possible, and also make sure that they come home safe and sound, and that when they get out of the military, they don't have to be on disability the rest of their lives.
Yep. Yeah.
I imagine that 6 or 8 mile run is really for mental fortitude more than actual physical training.
Yeah, what would be frustrating is you'd be in there because you'd have, I mean, where I was, we had mixed populations. We had males and females, but we'd be running, everybody running together. You got some people who are super fast, and you got others who can hardly run at all, and we're all mixed together. And oh, well, these people can't keep up, so we're just going to keep rounding around and go pick them up. And then, well, you guys aren't fast enough, so now at the end we're going to go do more PT. It's just like stuff like that make any sense. Let's punish you because you can't do what we're already asking you to do. But like Mark said, the things are changing with it. There's a lot of actually strength and conditioning positions now available to work with the military. There's a lot of strength coaches working side by side with the units to make sure their training is preparing them for combat, which is really great to see.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mark.
I would say any strength coach that's looking to get into the field, definitely look into the military, because there are a lot of positions out there right now, and you can really help these individuals be the best that they can be, and really make a difference, not only in the military, but also make a difference in their lives to help them when they get out of the service. Because most of the, especially the special operators, when they get out of their service after 15 to 20 years, their bodies are just destroyed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, you're talking multiple knee injuries. You're talking horrible spines, just from what they have to do for a job. I mean, if you're jumping out of a plane 1,000 times in a career, that's 1,000 times that you're landing, hopefully.
Yeah.
Once again, the braking system from jumping out of a plane, not that good.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Jeremy, go over your service a little bit. What branch were you in?
I was
what did you do?
United States Army. I was military police. I did actually very little police work when I was overseas. I did 2 tours to Operation Iraqi Freedom. Primarily the roles over there was training the Iraqi police and the Iraqi army while doing combat patrols, which was, looking back now, didn't really do a whole lot. It was a little bit of a waste of time, but that was our mission at the time. So that's pretty much what I spent most of my time doing. Over half of it was spent overseas, and that was enough to go, I'm tired of this. I want to go out and live my life. So
what's the goal for you? Where and I say this because I like asking everybody, and I talked to Sam last week, and she's like, I didn't answer anything about my personal life. It was all professional. I was like, okay. Where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years? And and I'll throw in another, what kind of impact do you foresee that you have with your athletes now? And where do you see that growing or changing?
Oh boy. Well, I got a little one on the way, so I hope in 3 years I'm still doing what I'm doing and being able to provide stability and income for my family.
Is that your first one?
Yep.
Yeah.
We actually didn't think we were gonna be able to have any kids, so we were actually kind of surprised when we found out she was in December, 7 weeks pregnant. So super stoked about it.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Awesome. Yeah,
Congratulations.
Cannot wait for that. So what's that?
Sleep now.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. But 5 years, it's pretty much the same thing. Like trying to make the grass green where I'm at. So try not to be focused on too much in the future and just focus on the here and now and our kids, my family, and stuff like that. As far as the athletes, I take a lot of advice from Coach Johnny Parker, which was a lot of the, invest in the kids and all that stuff. We're in the service industry. It's not about how much weight people can lift. It's about them as human beings and stuff. And I really try to go by that on a daily basis. We begin all of our weightlifting sessions and we end them with a handshake and how you guys doing and stuff like that. Communication is key. And I think it's been a big impact. We've had a couple of our kids actually at the high school go in the Marine Corps, and they actually came, made the effort to come by and see me before they left and, thank me for all the time and effort put into them and stuff like that. So I think that's huge. And I hope, you can always improve where you're at. So every year when it ends, go, well, what could I have done better? So that's pretty much, 5 years from now, maybe I'll be a better communicator. I'll be able to relate more with people than what I can now by having a little kid, maybe. So we'll see.
What about going back to the military to become a strength and conditioning coach, or do you want to stay with youth athletics?
I think, boy, I think because the military, I mean, it seemed like it'd be a good fit because I know that so much, but it's such I got so tired of it, and I really like working with sports. I'm an avid sports fan, so it's cool to be able to work with athletes and just go watch them play. So I think that's pretty much where I'm going to try to stay as with the athletic level.
Did you happen to see the Dan Le Batard show last week and his opinion of our profession and the individuals that are in our profession?
I did not.
Okay, so and I've reached out to Dan Le Batard multiple times through Instagram. He had 2 guests on his show, and this might have been off of the allegations that came on Chris Doyle, the strength coach at the University of Iowa. And I think a lot of people, and I'm going to get on a box right now, I think a lot of people need to understand that the individuals that work in the strength and conditioning profession, we're not a bunch of knuckle draggers. We're not a bunch of guys that are sitting around banging our heads against the locker room or eating an aluminum can or doing anything. I mean, there are people that do things before a game that make our profession look like a bunch of morons. And I'm going to challenge all the strength coaches out there. Understand that you're not only representing yourself, but you're representing our profession. And if you continue to act like complete and utter ass clowns on the sideline and keep doing things that are idiotic and have no place in our profession, you need to stop it. And you not only need to stop it for yourself because you look like an ass clown, but you need to stop it for all the individuals that are coming up in this profession. Most of the people in our profession, we have higher degrees. We have over 10 years plus professional experience. We're required to do continuing education on a yearly basis to continue our certification so that we can do our job the best we can for the individuals that we work with. So understand the 2%, I'd even say less than that, the 1% out there acting like complete and utter morons, you need to stop it. And Dan Le Batard, I've reached out to you multiple times to talk to you about this, and it's something that I'm trying to raise our level of professionalism in what we do, so that people like you don't get on national television and sound like a complete and utter moron talking about a profession that I love and the people that work in it. And we bust our ass on a daily basis so other people's children can be the best they can. So I'm sorry that I had a little rant there, but he didn't.
What happened, Mark? What exactly did he say?
He was just saying how we set the bar low, that we're not professional, basically, and yes, there are some people in our profession, and Jeremy can attest to this, that act like hype men on the sideline.
Yeah.
And are required by their coaches to act a certain way to keep their job. And most strength coaches, especially in football, we work as the get back coach. So we make sure that the sideline, they have to be behind a certain line on the sideline so the refs can go up and down the sideline without running into a 300-pound lineman or a coach. So one of the coaches that was referenced was the strength and conditioning coach at Clemson University, who was responsible for holding back their defensive coordinator during the game. And he's been on ESPN about how he has to hold back Coach Vrabel's during the game, and they've done a piece on it. But understand that individual, he has his undergraduate degree in exercise science. He probably more than likely has his master's degree in exercise physiology or some higher education. But all you see is the 5 seconds that he has to hold back a defensive coordinator, because that defensive coordinator cannot control his emotions during the game.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think as far as a strength coach, you know, what I've seen and the guests that we've talked to on this program, there is a high level of education needed. That CSCS test is no joke. You almost need a master's to be able to take and pass that test. But, you know, for anyone who's, you know, an athlete or a parent that doesn't really know much about the strength and conditioning world, you know, you may only see that hype piece, which is almost needed. I mean, you have to. There's an emotional connection you guys, I'm sure, have to make with your players in order to pump them up. But there's thought behind it. There's science. There's a lot of education and a lot of hours learning your craft.
But there's also a time and place for things. I mean, if you have to get your athletes hyped up 2 minutes before the kickoff or tip off, it's too late. I mean, it's too late. I mean, the hay's already in the barn. I mean, you shouldn't have to do it. And head coaches that require their strength coach to be the hype man, hire somebody else.
Yeah.
Hire a hype man. If that's what you want, hire a hype man. I mean, but for the strength coaches out there, and I'm not telling you not to be who you are, because if that's who you are, then be who you are. But understand that you're not only representing, once again, you're not only representing yourself, but you're representing our whole profession. You know, and most strength coaches, they don't want to be seen. They don't want any recognition. Like Chris said, when you know the athletic trainer and you know the strength coach, it's probably not for a good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Doyle's been in the news 3 different times. One for being the highest paid strength and conditioning coach in the collegiate realm. 2 for these allegations that are being brought by former players. And then a couple of years ago for the case of rhabdomyolysis that was taking place with the Iowa football program. So, by the way, out of those 3 things, only one of them is a good thing. He gets paid $800,000 a year. So,
yep.
I mean, Jeremy, you can speak on this. I mean, I've been sitting around for 2 weeks trying to one, get in touch with Dan Levitard to talk to him about it, but
stewing.
You know.
No, I agree with, like, it's again, going back to Coach Johnny Parker and all, it's like the kids are the show. You aren't. Like, don't put the attention on you. It's not about you. Like, you're responsible for making sure they stay healthy and their performance is where it needs to be. I mean, that's it. Like, prevent injuries and help them perform better. Other than that, let them, you know, be the show. You know, you're in the background. Don't take credit for anything. You know, it's unfortunate. Like with the hype stuff. When I was the assistant at Northern Michigan, I'm very much I'm not the yelling, screaming, blowing whistle and all that stuff. That's not my personality. Pretty much, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're going to do it. I go around, I coach people, I talk to people. Hey, how are you doing? How are things going? How is your body feeling? Stuff like that. That communication, which is so important. Like, if you're too busy yelling and screaming and blowing a whistle, you cannot communicate with your athletes. And I actually had one of the football coaches come in, and then he observed the training, and he went to the head strength coach and said, he's doing a crappy job. Like, and just like, but just off of that, because I wasn't yelling and screaming, just like, you know, and that frustrated me. I'm like, who are you to tell me how I am as a coach? I'm just like, you know, our women's basketball team, I'm not trying to toot my own horn because, you know, training doesn't go, you know, there's so many factors that come into sports besides training, but our women's basketball team that year went 22-6 is the best season they had since 2001, their first NCAA tournament in 6 years. Our women's lacrosse team had the first ever playoff appearance, best season they've ever had. And, you know, I think a lot of it comes down to communication and coaching your kids, like seeing how they're doing on a daily level so you can progress them properly without, you know, running them into the ground, you know, doing the, you know, do as I say. And if you're not going to do that, then get the hell out of here and stuff like that. It's so important to put them first and make them the show. And I think success comes from that.
I think another important point that we brought up before, and again, I think this is something you posted on Facebook, Mark. It was Gino Altaromo coming on and talking about his athletes and saying that he doesn't coach energy with his athletes. That's not something he should have to coach. You know, the hype and the motivation should be internal at that point at a higher level.
Well, it's got to come from the athlete. I mean, you know, you're talking Gino. He's not going to go down as the greatest women's basketball coach. He's going to go down as one of the greatest basketball coaches.
Yeah.
Men or women. And when you get to UConn, no, I'm not going to coach effort.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want effort, you're not going to be at UConn. I mean, you're going to get swallowed up. I mean, once again, the culture that they've instilled at UConn. I mean, good luck finding it. I mean, you probably find it at 5 other schools in the country for women's basketball. I mean, and that's a huge part of it. I mean, I do think there's a time and place to yell and scream and get hyped. I mean, but once again, if you yell and scream all the time, kids aren't going to hear you. I mean, and one of the things that I've done now, it's like, if I get mad, I'll talk quieter. Like, I'll make them listen, not by screaming, but by talking lower. Like, they have to pay attention to me. I mean, if you just heard my change there, I mean, I went from being ba 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 to just talking nice and calm. I mean, so I mean, understand that, like, the inflection of your voice can change, and that the kids will understand that, you know. But, you know, I think right now we have an opportunity as a profession to change not only how the profession is perceived, but also take it to the next level and require higher standards of a code of conduct almost. Yeah. You know, and if you want to act like an ass clown, maybe you shouldn't be certified by the national body. I mean, maybe you shouldn't be certified by the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association or by the NSCA. And that's fine. I mean, but don't for the population out there, for the general public, understand that the strength and conditioning coach, you know, we're not a bunch of knuckle dragging morons. I mean, we're not. I mean, we have higher degrees. You know, most directors, once again, have 10 or plus years in the profession, and we are required to do a huge amount of continuing education to keep our certification, to make sure that we're on top of what's going on in our profession, so we can provide the highest level of care for your child.
And that's what you want. You don't want a knuckle dragger in there that's going to hurt someone or train them improperly.
Well, once again, there is a time and a place to be a
knuckle dragging. Oh yeah, I'm a knuckle dragger every day.
I mean, you know, and there is a time to get hyped, but, like, once again, if you're looking at the sideline and you can pick out who the strength coach is by what they're wearing or how they're acting, you might want to change what you're wearing and how you're behaving.
Amen to that.
You know.
So
Jeremy, what else you got? You had some other points that you wanted to hit. Did we cover everything? What else? What do you got? What do you got? You want to bring to the table?
I mean, there's so much you could go, but I guess one thing I want to talk about too is just a little bit too, and I'll just keep it with this can, I guess, go to other sports as well, but primarily what I've seen with some of our lumberjack players is the whole nutrition aspect of the game, or just the mentality, like, to have to understand. You know, I'm 34. I'm not 18 anymore. So trying to relate to those kids, like, their goals are completely different, you know, but it comes to the communication factor again. When you got somebody coming in, you know, mid-season or even preseason and going, hey, I want to lose weight, or I cut my carbs completely, you know, trying to lose stomach fat. I'm just like, you should have been doing that in the off season. Like, you're playing games right now. Cutting your carbs is the dumbest thing you can be doing. You know, it supports your energy system for skating.
Coach, I'm going into keto.
Yeah, just
keto diet. No, you're not in season.
Yep, stuff like that too. Or I need to get faster. Just like we can't do that now. Like, you know, we can maintain where you're at, or hopefully see some improvement. But, like, to solely focus on you getting faster because you didn't put in the work in the off season, that's on you. Like, you should have done your part, so we're not facing this little pandemic right now. So,
what's the schedule going to be like? Are they coming back? I mean, what's going on?
Oh boy, yeah, that's what's hard, because right now there's no season schedule, or at least at all. And right now it seems like hopefully all is going to go as planned, which is frustrating for me as a standpoint. You know, as far as like trying to plan out the year and all that stuff is you don't have a schedule. I mean, I still send the workouts to our guys, but I mean, it's like, I don't know what to prepare for or when to prepare them for. So it's crazy.
Well, and you also don't know what they have, what availability.
Yeah. And I've had to treat everybody like, because some people do have access to weights, but the workouts I send to all the guys I have to assume nobody has access to anything. So I've had to get very creative with body weight stuff, and I'm fingers crossed. Hopefully, more gyms start opening back up so we can start getting heavier lifts in. Because my fear is once the season starts, not just with the hockey guys, but all the other sports, is the injury rates from nobody being able to train for strength and all that stuff. When you go to full sprints and all that stuff, you don't have the breaks or anything, you're gonna tear ligaments or muscle strains and stuff like that. So that's a big concern.
I'm really interested to see the rate of Achilles, hamstring, and ACL injuries with football and basketball coming off of this pandemic.
Yep, it's
because I'm very scared with the coaches that I've talked with. They say they have an open and honest dialogue with their coaches, but as we know, when players come back, sometimes the best laid plan gets thrown right out the window.
Yep.
And that coach wants all 8 hours on the field or on the court.
Yep.
And maybe the strength coach will get 1 or 2 hours.
Yep. And there's no slowly progressing. It's full blown. We got to make up for lost time. And that's when, it hits the fan and go, well, what could we have done better? Like,
yeah, think before you do it, let's think what you could do better before you do it.
Yes.
And a lot of the coaches that I've talked to, I mean, have been basketball coaches, but it's basketball strength coaches. And it's like, when I first started, the strength coach was the only coach that they worked with in the summertime. And then we got all 8 hours. And then the coaches started fighting for more court time. So then it went to 6 and 2. And now it's at 4 and 4. And I would hope that the coaches that listen to this understand when their players come back, that if they do a 4 and 4 split, it's not going to go that well. Because these players, I mean, basketball players are probably still playing basketball. They're not getting in the weight room. They're not doing the conditioning that they need to do.
Yeah.
But if they can do the first couple weeks of letting the strength coach work with them so that they're better prepared for when the rigors of the season come into play, I think you'll see that the likelihood of injury and the will decrease. But like ramp go 8-0 for like the first couple weeks, then go like 6 and 2, and then by the end of the summer, maybe be at a 4 and 4 before you go back into preseason once school opens up. So,
Mark, is there some kind of resource that collects information on injuries where someone can categorize different injuries and you could compare rates from this year and last year?
I would think like the NATA might have something. I mean, they're gonna. I guarantee you they're gonna do something this year with it. I mean, because there's gonna be. I think it's gonna be through the roof. I mean, I think everybody remembers when the NFL did their lockout and they came back. I mean, the number of Achilles that were ruptured and ACLs that were blown out and hamstrings that were tweaked, I mean, were off the chart. And you're talking what most people consider the highest level of athleticism in this country, the NFL players. But these guys, they get detrained just as easy as anybody else. I mean, if they sit around for 2 weeks and don't do anything, they're back at square one. So, I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time to get trained. It doesn't take a lot of time to get detrained.
Yep, that's for sure.
If going back to working on your brakes, and I got this from Dr. Nijam out at the University of Kansas. You got to work on your brakes. If the brakes don't work, doesn't matter how well the gas works.
Yep.
Take care of the brakes first, and then worry about the gas. I was all over the place.
That's spot on. So it's. I agree.
Yeah. What else you got, Jeremy?
Oh, another point and work ethic. The one thing I really want to touch on is the quote unquote athlete spotlight. like athletes need to realize, like, especially if you want to go up and play at the college level or make it the pros, like you are going to be scrutinized for everything you do. You represent not only yourself, but your coaches, your teammates, your organization. And I'll talk about my first time with the Lumberjacks. We had a goalie who was rated number 5 in all of North of America. He was supposed to be a first round draft pick. But his work ethic was, I mean, it was really bad. Like it was like trying to pull teeth to get him to do anything, or this always hurt, that always hurt. And we also had another kid who would come in. He never complained. He worked 100%. He didn't, he would still joke around with the guys and that stuff, but his intensity was always my full-blown effort towards everything. Well, the goalie never got drafted because the scouts would call and ask about him, and I would be like, be honest, this is what his work ethic is, because they know you can play hockey. They don't care about that. They want to know how you are as a person, what your how you represent yourself in the weight room and all that other stuff. And then the guy who came in and gave 100% every day, well, he actually got drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, and he didn't even think he was going to get drafted. So just by coming in and going, this is what I got to do, this is what I'm going to do, to maintain my fitness throughout the season and give my best towards the team, and it ultimately ended up paying off for him. So
I think it was Mark. Was it episode 11? Pat Hall. Pat Hall's the one of the recruiting coaches at Central Connecticut State University. We had him on, and he was talking about how when he goes to recruits, he dresses in plain clothes, doesn't wear any university apparel, and he's like a ninja. He sneaks up behind the parents, behind the kid, to find out how he is when nobody's looking.
And what the players that Jeremy works with and some of the players that are in the collegiate world, what you need to understand, when you're going to go to the next level, the scouts are going to talk to the weight room coach. They're going to talk to the strength and conditioning coach, because once again, the strength and conditioning coach knows you on a different level than the head coach. So the athletic trainer, the strength coach that you work with, the scouts are going to talk to them. I mean, I've talked to an NBA scout. I've talked to one of the cooler ones is I talked to a recruiter for the Secret Service, because one of my soccer players wanted to go into the Secret Service, and he put me down as a reference. So, I'm in the weight room, and this guy comes in, overcoat on, tie on, briefcase. And he called me.
Oh, you started sweating, huh?
Well, no, he called me and told me he was coming in. But I mean, what an honor for me! What an honor for me for one of my athletes to think so highly of me that I can speak on him on a personal level to the Secret Service, so he can get the job that he has always wanted to have.
Yeah.
I mean, so what a lot of people need to understand is that, once again, like Pat said, everybody's watching you. There's probably not an athlete on your teams, Jeremy, especially with the junior hockey, that there aren't eyes on when they're playing a game.
Yep.
But what you do off the ice and how you are as a person is going to determine whether you get to that next level.
Yes. Yep. I actually had we have a good player this year too, and I'm not going to say names or anything, but he was very, very gifted on the ice. Like he can hold the puck, he can do all this fancy stuff. He's a goal scorer, he's a playmaker, and all that stuff. But in the weight room, it was just I'm going to come in by myself, and he was one of the quote unquote leaders on the team too, and just we go to do split squats or anything. He grabbed like the 15-pound dumbbells. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like our goalie's doing almost 315 with a barbell on his back, and you're doing 15-pound dumbbells. Like, come on, man. And I told all these guys, I do it every year, is like, scouts are going to call me after the end of the year about, potentially drafting you if they're interested in you. Make sure you're putting your best effort, representing yourself how you want to be seen. So I actually had a scout call about this guy, and he said, of course, I talked to him, and he said, yeah, I'm a hard worker, yada, yada, yada. I'm just like, well, here's my opinion of that. And then a couple of weeks later, I had the strength and conditioning staff for this NHL team call me and talk even more about it. So I'm just like, it rolls downhill. Like, if you don't think it's going to come back and bite you, especially as an athlete, you're wrong. It's going to come back and hit you. So you might as well put the effort in and, put your best foot forward. Have pride in yourself and pride in the things that you do, and it'll reward you in the end.
Yeah. Yep. Whether you make it to the professional level or not, if you put your best effort and foot forward, you will always be able to look yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
Not intended, because I got one behind me. And you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror, because that's ultimately who you have to answer to.
Yep.
Awesome. I think that's a good place to leave it there, fellas. Jeremy, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your service. Thanks for reaching out to us. Like I said in the beginning, we're open. So if you feel you got something you want to discuss, whether you're a coach, strength coach, athlete, or a parent, give us an email at info@athletehackers.com. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. We have a Facebook page. Go to all those sources, subscribe, give us thumbs up, share the links, tell your friends about it. Mr. Spellman.
Jeremy, how can people reach out to you if they want to talk more X's and O's and see what you're doing with hockey and how you're working with the high school athletes?
All right. Well, first off, thank you guys for letting me be on here. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram. It's Coach Jeremy Tormala. If you want to reach out to me, email. I'll never not respond to anybody. It's jeremy.tormala@alumni.n as in Nike mu.edu.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Jeremy. Good luck to you in this upcoming season. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Have a great day. Make it the best you can. All my best. God bless. See you when we see you. Peace.